have my microservices-based stock trader application up and running in this environment. I've done a couple things. One, I have deployed a new version of my application and pushed out new versions of the containers. You can see the change events up along the timeline. One of the other things I've done is I've scaled down my deployments. So to save money, I don't want to consume a lot of resources, so I'm now running with just a single instance of this microservice. And if I looked at some of the other microservices, I might see one or two copies of those microservices running. Initially, performance was good, but what I noticed happening is I start to see some increases in latency on this trader service. Traffic's increasing a little bit. Saturation seems to be okay. There's no errors at all, but let's take a look at my application topology because I do see some events along the timeline. This is our one-hop topology of the microservices-based application. We try to keep this simple to help you really focus on things that are important. In this case, a browser is calling my trader service. The trader service is calling the portfolio service. I can click on this and drill down to the details. We're now in the context of the portfolio service. You can see in this case we've got two instances of this service running. Now we see a couple of interesting things at the top of the screen. These are our four golden signals: latency, errors, traffic, and saturation. If I look at the latency, you can see it's clearly increased. But what's interesting here is that we see traffic increased a little bit before the latency increase. So an increase in traffic up to a point didn't seem to increase and affect the latency, but at some point we start to have capacity problems and we start to see an increase in latency. Now let's take a look at the rest of this application. If I scroll down, you see our one-hop service topology for this service. You can see the portfolio service has four dependencies. It's dependent on DB2, ODM, a stock quote service, and MQ. On the left-hand side, we have a deployment topology. Here is an active topology showing the nodes, pods, containers that make up this environment. I can fly over the various resources and see their status. I can also drill down for more detail. If I select the container, I can drill into the container. We're now in the context of this container. We see those same golden signals at the top, but as we scroll down, we'll see additional information like the CPU nanocores the container is consuming. And if we scroll down further, we see the related resources. In this case, I can drill into and see that there's a warning on Webs for Liberty. I can see the JVM metrics. Let's click on Liberty. Here you see those same golden signals at the top. And you can see additional information about the app server. We see throughput, completion rates, response time, and you can see we've got some errors along the timeline as well. Trade pool activities, etc. So very detailed information about what's going on with this app server. Now, let's take a look at DB2 since that was a dependency as well. You can see with the DB2 we've got some errors on the timeline. These are related to the pool hit ratios. You can see we've got some locks held. We've got active connections, very detailed information about what's happening within the DB2 server. So we've done some analysis. We think we've made a mistake by scaling down the pods to such small numbers. Maybe we need to scale up the pods to increase our capacity. Now, as you can see, even though traffic is still moderately high, the latency has dropped way down and the application is back to normal. So you can see we scaled out our deployment here. You can see the containers getting deployed. And you can see we now have 3 replicas of this particular microservice. And you can see that the latency has returned to normal. Traffic is still reasonably high, but again, it's not affecting the latency of the application. And saturation has also dropped down a little bit. Let's quickly look at the trader service. Again, you can see the deployment here. And you can see we scaled this out to 3 replicas. All the containers are up and running and healthy. And you can see latency is normal. The requests are a little bit higher still, but no issues with saturation or latency and no errors in the application. So everything is back to running healthy. By scaling things out to 3 pods, we've corrected the problem we had in the environment.